Welcome back, everyone, and finally, we're moving to the part where we'll be reviewing a lot of fake and super fake Louis Vuitton Neverfulls. So I hope you already have your eye trained and you reviewed the previous videos very carefully, so it will be very easy for you to identify, to tell whether why this particular handbag, is not authentic. Let's start from the number one, and I will be explaining all the decisions in this video, and then we will be moving a little bit faster because hopefully you won't need any explanation, or you won't need a detailed explanation after reviewing so many beautiful, authentic Louis Vuitton Neverfulls. So in each case, just imagine that's a handbag you're gonna buy, or that's a handbag that your customer is asking you to review if you are authenticating for someone. So let's imagine there's a listing that has these pictures. And for each handbag, we'll try to identify red flags. As I've already said, my approach is to identify at least 3 red flags for each handbag. You never base your decision on just one thing that seems to be wrong, because, well, that may not be very reliable, because, well, at some point, I've seen a Neverfull with a very unclear heat stamp. And it also seemed that the heat stamp is blurry. So I don't know, probably the stamp wasn't fixed at the time the heat stamp was being done. And it got blurry, and I looked at this Neverfull and I couldn't understand whether the handbag is authentic or not. I reviewed it with another authenticator, and she confirmed my guess. That was a production error, actually. So no more words, and we are moving to authenticating this Neverfull. It looks good here. If you have some authentication experience, you know that all these cards are a total scam. Louis Vuitton cards don't look like this. They use another font. They use another color for font color. It needs to be like this. It needs to be brown. And this dust bag is also fake, just because on newer dust bags the font is much thicker. It's bold, and on the previous on older dust bags it's brown. But again, you never base your decision just on any removable parts that come with handbags. I often, well, I wouldn't say often, but I've had some cases when I ordered an authentic handbag, and when I unpacked it, I was shocked because inside I see these fake cards, and I was like, "Oh my God, I ordered a fake. I made a mistake. How is that possible?" And then I reviewed the handbag once again, and it turned to be authentic. It was an authentic handbag with fake cards. Same goes vice versa. Very often, unfortunately, there's a handbag that comes with authentic dust bag, with an authentic receipt, authentic cards, whatever, and unfortunately, that doesn't mean that the handbag is authentic. So this is a minor red flag. Like, we need to be focused here. All the packaging seems to be okay on this picture. And then we have a picture of the pouch heat stamp. I guess you immediately see that it's not authentic, but as we are just starting to authenticate, let's move it here, we're just starting to compare whether how do we determine, how do we tell each item? We'll be comparing, and that's the base of any authentication. So in order to determine whether this handbag is authentic or not, you need to compare it to a real one, and you need to know what a real one looks like. That's why we were reviewing so many photos of authentic Louis Vuitton Neverfulls. And whenever you put them side by side, and of course, this is a Damier Ebene Neverfull, this is a monogram Neverfull, but again, the fonts, the principles are all the same. And what we see here, first red flag, R is too large. It's way too large than it should be, much larger than this O. Second red flag, missing some space here. Can you see how much space is under made in Spain or in France line? Not enough space here, definitely. And overall, even if they even provided that the heat stamp is blurry, you can see that the font is wrong. The N is very narrow. It doesn't resemble this N at all. So here are 3 red flags already. But let's look for more. Let's look for more because, again, this Neverfull comes with a pouch. And the pouch is detachable. So you can say, okay, the pouch is fake, but how do we determine that a Neverfull is fake? Because it can be real. Well, chances are, the chance is slim, but it still exists. And here's the Neverfull date code, CA. According to this date code, it was made in 2019 in Spain. What do we see on a heat stamp? I know it's a heat stamp from the pouch, but again, it's made in France, and there is a feeling that something's wrong with both the handbag and this and the pouch and its pouch. And then let's compare it to a real Louis Vuitton. To a real Louis Vuitton date code CA. Here's a real date code and here's a fake date code. So you can immediately see that it's using wrong font. An authentic CA date code from a Neverfull must have this space between CA and the digits. And the question you might ask here is, how do I know all the fonts for a specific date code, for a specific manufacturing factory like CA? How many date code fonts are there? 1, 2, 3, 4? It can be multiple. There are multiple fonts for a specific date code. And I guess the answer here is you can only do that with experience. And again, if you compile your own database of authentic items, if you have enough experience with dealing with authentic items, then you'll be able to tell. You'll always be able to tell that. But what can be a giveaway if you don't know anything about the font? First of all, this date code is too large. Usually, the font itself is smaller, so there is much space here. We can put another date code here, right? It has some space. And with this one, we can't add another date code here. It would be very close or even touch this date code, right? So it should be a red flag, like something's not right. But I guess you immediately see that that's a fake date code, and unfortunately, with a lot of Neverfulls, that's the only thing you must know. So, like, the heat stamp is almost perfect. It's very hard to tell it. You look at the heat stamp and you feel that something's wrong, but whenever you compare it to a real one, it seems absolutely right. We'll see this Neverfulls later. All right, that was quite easy, right? Now, moving next, we have a lot of Neverfulls. I've compiled a lot of different Neverfulls for you. Some of them are super fakes. Some of them are very easy to tell. We need practice, right? So we are just practicing, and you'll be amazed because there are fakes that have a heat stamp looking like a total scam, but the date code is, well, looks wonderful. It looks like a real date code. And vice versa. The heat stamp looks authentic, and a date code is very easy to tell. Now let's move on. Let's move on. Look at this heat stamp. For an untrained eye, it looks like an authentic heat stamp from a Neverfull, right? This one doesn't look bad. Well, if you have enough authentication experience, you feel that something's wrong, but you don't understand what exactly. Because, well, basically it looks okay. The corners, everything else looks great. Well, the major giveaway here, that's the last picture. The major giveaway here, of course, and you know that, are rounded corners. Whenever you see rounded corners on a date code in any handbag, that must be a red flag. By the way, not there are a few handbags in Louis Vuitton that do have rounded corners. I guess they were supposed to be sharp corners on these handbags, but the leather was too soft, and they do look like this. I was amazed because, and it's mostly limited editions, by the way. Now, with this Neverfull, rounded corners are a red flag number 1. A red flag number 2 is the date code. But before we continue to the date code, let's start with a heat stamp, okay? Now, here's a heat stamp, and we'll do a very important thing. We'll make it straight. Now we have a straight heat stamp, and we'll compare it to an authentic heat stamp. That might take a little while, but it's very important. I don't know what else is important in authentication, rather than training your eye and seeing the differences, seeing the slightest differences between the two items. Now, okay, that's nice. So they do look very, very similar to each other, right? I wouldn't say that something, well, a lot of things are wrong with this heat stamp. It looks very good. But whenever you're starting to examine it thoroughly, first you can see that this O is a perfect round, right? And this O is a little bit not that perfect. It's oval. It's just a little bit. It's a tiny detail, but they do differ. Now, N seems to be very good, actually, very similar to this one. However, and again, it's barely noticeable. But when you see at this L and O, they are very close to each other. So there's basically no space between the letters. If we draw a line here, up, straight line up, it will be just very close to this O. If we draw a line here, it's a little bit further from the O. Can you see that? Can you see the space between the O and the U? Again, these are very close to each other, and these are a little bit further apart. But again, overall, that's a great heat stamp. And of course, the major giveaway with a heat stamp is the color of the heat stamp, because it seems to be glossy while it needs to be matte. It's never glossy. It's this color. Well, it can be faded a little bit, but it's never glossy, like this type of red, very noticeable red. Now let's compare this interesting heat stamp to an authentic heat stamp, which is also super important. And we'll compare it to this one, but again, all the rules are the same. All the rules are the same. So what are the differences? We need to find the differences. We need to look for all the differences that are present here. With this heat stamp, well, again, first of all, it looks very good. Second, when you examine it thoroughly, you can see that first red flag with this heat stamp is glossy heat stamp itself. Second, this O is a little bit oval, not that perfect as this one. Then something's wrong with the made because, well, the heat stamp is very sloppy here, very sloppy. And what else? Well, the size of this trademark is actually acceptable. However, I do feel that it's probably very close to the letters here. So we do have three red flags, and we are moving to the next Neverfull. Now, next is a Neverfull number 3. I feel like something's wrong with the hardware here. I can understand what exactly, but it seems like the quality of engraving is not consistent with authentic Louis Vuitton quality. And whenever we see such a heat stamp, I don't think that a thorough examination is needed. That's not an authentic Louis Vuitton font. All the letters are just not like the letters in an authentic font. And this part is also too thick for an authentic Neverfull. It's too wide, too thick. Just in case, let's take a look at other details. I feel like the shape of the handle is a little bit, it's a little bit thicker than it should be. And the shape of this element is exactly not right. So we don't even need to look at the heat stamp. Let's compare it hardware. And we'll open this element and this element. So you definitely see that the shape, it's like almost a round here, while there's a triangle, a rounded triangle on an authentic Louis Vuitton Neverfull. All right, sorry. And we're, oh, let's see the date code, by the way. Let's see the date code. And here's the date code. It looks pretty awesome, actually. However, you know that a Neverfull was introduced in 2007, and this date code says that this Neverfull was made in 2003. So it's not authentic. Not authentic at all. Let's move next. Neverfull number 4. Only 2 pictures here. Well, this one... I love this quality. I'm always laughing when I get photos and the customers are asking to authenticate a handbag. They are ready to pay $1,000 and they send photos in this resolution. However, with this specific handbag, it's pretty easy. First of all, the first red flag is a horizontal date code. This date code says the Neverfull was made in 2020, whereas vertical date codes were discontinued in 2008. That's the first one. The second one are these lines, which are never present on an authentic Louis Vuitton date code. Well, unless it's a Noe handbag. Well, on Neverfull, they're never present. We are just considering the Neverfull in this course, right? And the second and the third red flag would be the font. The font, because this font is not consistent with authentic SD font. Now let's see the real font. We have seen it many times. Probably not a good picture here. So here's an authentic font, and this font is not authentic. By the way, there is a variation of this font, like here. can you see that D has another shape? This one is newer, and this is a little bit, though they mix it actually. They mix it a lot. All right, let's move next. Number 5. Number 5. Let's start with the general pictures. Well, looks okay to me. Looks good so far. On this picture, I feel that something's wrong with the handles. Like the handle is too puffy. It's puffier than it should be. And well, the handles again here in this area, they don't look as thick as they are on an authentic Neverfull, though it may be a very used handbag, for instance, and then they shouldn't be very thick and structured. Looks good so far. This element, well, overall, without comparing it to authentic hardware and this leather piece, looks good, okay? But now we have this heat stamp. And again, the first red flag is this type of heat stamp, which is glossy. And just not right. Well, let's see all the differences. First of all, this trademark is too close to the font. It should be a little bit higher, a little bit closer to the stitching. No, just a little bit further from the Louis Vuitton. Now, N is clearly different. We'll compare this on. These two letters are the same width here. And these ones are they just don't look like this. They look differently. Then, if you look very closely, Paris has totally different font. So here there's a lot of space here in P and in R. Too much space. These authentic P and R, they don't have a lot of space inside. Now A has different shape. Can you see that? Again, a sharp corner here, which, well, this A doesn't have a sharp corner. What else? This E, well, it can be a production defect if you see an E like this. I've seen that. So it's not a very serious red flag, but it's a red flag in the end. Now, is there a date code? Yes, there is a date code, which is AR, and it's a date code from the pouch. And we don't have a date code from the Neverfull. Oh, let's look at the whole set of pictures first of all. Okay, so what we see here is, remember I've shown you the same hardware clasp, but it was on a Neverfull. And all the corners were rounded. No sharp corners at all. I don't like this sharp corner. It's a red flag, definitely. And LV monogram is much larger than it should be. And again, that's the same hardware. Sharp corner again. Now, yeah, it has a date code from the pouch. What can we say looking at this date code? The first red flag is rounded corners, of course. And the second red flag is, what would be the second red flag? What do you think? Well, font looks pretty good here. So yeah, font is a red flag. But there's a very, very big, large red flag here, which is the pouch was released in 2014, and this date code says it was released in 2009. Couldn't have happened. So that's a fake Neverfull and a fake pouch. Moving next. Next, Neverfull. This one's interesting as far as I remember. I've had a lot of customers saying that patina is only present on authentic Louis Vuitton items. Well, it's not. It's just a certain type of leather, and modern fakes and especially super fakes, they're basically using the same leather, a very similar one, and it has patina, it has the same color. Well, if you look at this, it does look like an authentic Neverfull. If you look here, it's not that authentic anymore, because this fabric is actually very thick. It's very hard to rub it to this point so that it has a lot of, it shows a lot of wear. Now, second red flag that I see here is this part. Remember what I told you about this stitching? It should stop somewhere here, like a little way below the middle. But it goes down to the hardware, and it's not right, just not right. And you don't need to see the heat stamp whenever you see something like this. This R is way too close to the stitching, which doesn't happen on authentic Neverfull handbags. But let's see the whole set, just to see what type of fakes are present on the market. Can you see that a fake Neverfull has the same wear as an authentic Neverfull? So they're basically using the same technology. The same technology for the canvas. And canvas can be very similar. Well, the engraving doesn't look right. All these lines don't look right just because they are not the same. They don't have the same space from the line to the edge, so it looks a little bit sloppy. Now, look at the handle. If someone showed me the handle, I'd say that it looks exactly like an authentic Neverfull handle. The wear, the leather, the wrinkles, the glazing, everything looks fine. And the shape of this element also looks very good, very good. But now let's see the giveaways. And first giveaway is, of course, this zipper puller. The reason we didn't mention it is because the fakes are pretty good, actually. There's no specific urge to look at this element. Modern fakes have copied it really well. Again, the date code, looks fine for an unprofessional eye. And this Neverfull was made in 2007, which is consistent with an authentic item. But a giveaway here is the size of the font. So usually, whenever Louis Vuitton produces a date code, this leather piece, there is always much space from the date code to the edge of the leather piece. And this one's just too large. It's way too close to the borders. Now, look at the heat stamp. Well, I guess you immediately see that this heat stamp is from a fake item, but just in case and just to train our eye, let's see the differences. And we'll see the differences in a minute. So, here's a fake heat stamp, and here's an authentic heat stamp. Well, I guess you can see that these are totally different. Too close to the stitching, and it's not the same shape. S is not the same shape. V, basically every letter is not the same shape. a lot of space between these letters in Made in France, while Authentic Neverfull doesn't have that much space between these letters. Well, everything is wrong with this handbag. Everything is wrong. And of course, this type of wear normally doesn't happen on an Authentic Neverfull because the fabric is thick. And just let me show you. Okay, number 7. Number 7. Okay, so an Authentic Louis Vuitton Neverfull has a layer of, let's say, like a plastic, a very thin plastic layer in the pocket, which protects it from anything. You can put your cosmetics in, and be sure that it won't spoil, won't hurt the handbag. So that's an important factor too. And what surprised me regarding this fake is that it does have the same layer, or more or less the same layer. So it often, when a Neverfull is used, this layer looks like this. We have seen it on authentic Neverfulls. And a fake Neverfull also copies that. Well, on this picture, I can see that something's wrong. My gut is screaming. And basically, well, the leather doesn't look authentic, or there are some red flags. I don't like the glazing here, and I don't like the color of the stitching. It's too bright, too yellow. Normally that doesn't happen on authentic Neverfulls. The date code looks pretty good, actually. TH, made in 2008, so everything looks fine. But here's another giveaway. The color of the pocket here, pocket fabric, and the color of the inside lining are different, while there should be the same. That's an interesting point to mention. And again, the handle, all the stitching, everything looks perfect. The patina, very good. But whenever we take a look at the heat stamp, we immediately understand that this is a fake Louis Vuitton heat stamp. And we'll compare it just for practice. Again, way too large. The trademark is way too large. The N is too narrow. It's too far away from the O. Paris has different font. Look at the R. The R is totally different. Totally different. Well, basically, there are inconsistencies in Made in France, but they are not that recognizable, I'd say. So that was another fake. Number 8, and let's start with this picture. Just by looking at this picture, I can see that something's wrong with the shape of the handle. Can you see that? Can you see that? If we look at the handle, let's make it a little smaller. And at this handle, can you see some inconsistencies? First of all, the stitching here is too far away from each other. It should be a little bit closer. And second, it seems like this shape is very nice and thin. And this shape looks like it's a bit bulky in this part. All right, so hopefully you see this type of inconsistency on the handle. And let's continue with other pictures. So that was the handle. This one looks more or less fine. I can see some small red flags when it comes to hardware, but let's continue and see the heat stamp. And at the same time, when we see the heat stamp, we immediately know that this handbag is not authentic. Why? Just because here is an authentic stamp, authentic font, and here's a font that it's not authentic. First red flag, the color of the font. Second red flag, this N. Third red flag is the quality of the heat stamp overall. See the nicest quality here. And here it looks like some parts are deeper, sometimes are not that deep. Again, made has different font. So we already have our 3 red flags here. But now let's look at other elements. The stitching is too it goes all the way down below to the hardware, while it should end somewhere here, like an authentic Neverfull. And then the date code. The date code basically has wrong font, and this font is too large for this leather piece. Must be much, much smaller. Do we need to stop here? I don't think so. And we'll continue to number 9. Number 9, here's a monogram Neverfull. The shape of this leather piece is not correct. If we compare it to an authentic one, just let's find it, and let's compare it to an authentic part from the Neverfull handbag. Can you see the differences in shape? Here and here. And by the way, the glazing here is really sloppy, as well as the color of the stitching. See the color here? That's a normal Louis Vuitton stitching color. And here, well, it doesn't look like this. The shape of this hardware is also doesn't indicate that an item is authentic. So it's a fake. Do we have more pictures here? Well, I won't be stopping here. I guess it's pretty obvious, right? Too large, too thin, too close to the stitching, sloppy stitching. So there are many, many red flags with this handbag. And here's the date code, which is not attached as it should. I can't even understand where it's attached, but it doesn't look normal, and the font is too large for a date code. And the last bag in this video looks good so far, and doesn't look good so far. Let's compare it to an authentic part. And you immediately see the differences. You immediately see that the hardware is wrong. This element doesn't have this line that should be present on an authentic handbag. The color of hardware is wrong. Well, everything is not right. But let's see all the red flags. I don't like this handle for some reason. First of all, the stitching is too far away here. The handle shouldn't be as thick. And second, well, I think the stitching is too deep into the leather, which shouldn't happen on an authentic handbag. And we don't need more words here. The heat stamp is colorless. The fonts are very wrong. and it doesn't look like an authentic Louis Vuitton Neverfull, though the date code, though, looks pretty good. And by the way, it's on the other side from the pocket, from the internal pocket. So if we look straight at the pocket, which is here, the date code is from this side, and it's on the wrong side. Well, that was it. These were 10 fake Neverfulls, and we'll continue in the next video.